out because the Henry Wu character or Doctor Wu character is a lot more prominent in it. So he sort of explains everything, although he gets ripped to death by the raptors later on. But in the back to the film version, basically now everything's gone to hell. The T-Rex chases them. They don't get Malcolm, but the T-Rex has already tipped the other car over the ledge. But Grant saves the kids, and they start making their way through Jurassic Park. But then Richard Attenborough's character, John Hammond, still wants to get the park up and running again, and you feel for him. You want the park to work every time you watch that film. Don't when they first going round. Don't you want everything not to happen? Don't you want everything to work?
Well, that's something that happens with, I would say, every film. You know the outcome and all this and all stuff. But if you want something different, you'll wish for it. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, it would have been a dull film if they just went around looking at dinosaurs, but you really felt for Hammond's character, and you really wanted his part to work. You were like, "Oh, poor old man, your part's not working because you hadn't hired some fat bloke who is a bit of a prick." Uh, you know, pat him on the head. Because he,
I
because
get it.
he, because he starts getting a bit down, doesn't he? He goes and eats the ice cream, doesn't he? And she comes in and he's like, "You never had control. That was the illusion." And he's like, "Well, I made fleas in a circus. So there." So, but he's also upset because the park's not working. But he says he's going to get it right the next time, which is interesting. But and then he later on says that he, basically turns against the idea, as he's seen in the second film. He goes against it, but in this film he's very much trying to get the park back up and running. Um, One thing that bothered me, it probably was limited to the special effects, is if all these dinosaurs, if all the cages went down, why did we only see, the T-Rex? Where was all the rest of them?
Um, well, when they first go with the jeep and start the tour, they were all or sleeping or in another
Yeah, there was
part of the
that. There was
park.
the one that spit poison, which kills, Dennis Nedry, the fat
Yeah,
guy.
well,
He,
in the confusion, I believe some raptors or T-Rex himself, with the cages were connected with the huge hole the T-Rex did when he came out, and the electricity protection went out. I think they were being pretty easy for the dinosaurs to go out.
yeah, and you saw the Gallimimus and the Brachiosaurs and all that, but you never got to see any more sort of big predators until the raptors got out. But they didn't get out. They only got out because the power went off, and that was Samuel L. Jackson's first big thing was when he was chain smoking for the whole thing. He's just like, "I won't do it. You're gonna get somebody else to do it." And he's like, "You're gonna shutting down the system is the only thing that will get this park working again." And he's like, "Okay then, I'll do it." And then he just turns off the power, and he's like, "Hold on to your butts," which is the line. Turns off the power, switches it back on, but then because they turned off the power, because the raptors are so clever, they got out while the power was off. So now the raptors are out, and they start eating everybody. And then um, LA goes and turns all the power back on. Um, for whatever reason, even though all the fences were already breached, although the raptors were eating people already, she still turned the fences back on. Well, they're out, love. You got to get them back in first. Um, but nevertheless, and then the grand finale, T-Rex basically saves their ass from the raptors because he bursts into the visitor centre and wants a piece of them. And then they go and he says, "Mr. Hammond, I've decided not to endorse your park." And he's like, "So am I." So yeah, I've basically just rambled on about the plot of this film so far. We haven't spoken about any things, and really just been me rambling really. So Frank, what's your favourite scene of this film?
Um, I would say I have two. Um, First, as you said, we waited way too long to see the T-Rex and we finally did it. It was great. It was astounding. Um, and the second one that I would pick as my favorite, um, when the Dilophosaurus spits on Nedry and then eats it. Well,
Yeah.
that's a hell of a scary scene,
Yeah, because
For
he's
me
just
as
like
a
gets in the
kid,
car and then he's there and he's like, oh,
fuck. Yeah,
yeah,
the dinosaur actually looks like an easy one, like a
yeah.
quiet.
He has those gills, doesn't he, that kind of fan out like a peacock's feathers and
Yeah, and then he just spits that acid, and
yeah.
as a kid, it really scared you out.
Mm. Certainly the big scare for them was, they tried to build the Raptors up, but they weren't a tenth as good or as scary as the T-Rex was. There was all this build-up for the Raptors, but to me, the Raptors were the secondary stars to the T-Rex, and to Spielberg himself, because he rewrote the ending, said the T-Rex had come back. T-Rex wasn't originally meant to be in the ending, but T-Rex wasn't the star of the film. His attack, the original attack from the T-Rex, that's my favourite scene of the film, when the power goes off and the T-Rex gets out. The CGI, to this day, this was made in 1993, folks, and it's still, to this day, the T-Rex attack still stands up as one of the best CGI things moments. Everything is seamless. You have a hard time finding out where Stan Winston's puppetry ends and ILM begin. Good luck in trying to find out where that happens.
Yeah, I think going to the Raptors thing, uh, you know, I think that all those it's up to the T-Rex being the trademark of them all. Uh, you think dinosaur and you think T-Rex, and as long as the Raptors are much scary in this movie and the second one and the third one than the T-Rex that just one and a giant and it's confusable. Uh, I think that's really
They're always saying that the Raptors are the better killers and stuff, and certainly the scene where the Raptors jump on the park ranger dude is quite stuff when he starts ripping him apart, and also the hand of Mr. Arnold comes down. She's like, "Oh, Mr. Arnold," and the hand comes on her shoulder. Ah. Uh, uh, but so the Raptors are quite, built as quite scary. But to me, they weren't, as a kid even, they weren't as tenth as scary as the T-Rex was. Even though the T-Rex is supposedly the big clumsy one, he was still more scary than the Raptors. To me.
um, well, it's just the impact. Raptors are great killers and are depicted as great killers and great predators, but the sight of a giant dinosaur as a T-Rex was, those giant fangs and those teeth, and it was just way more menacing that a much smaller dinosaur as the raptor was.
Mm. And I think it should be mentioned here that raptors are not like that. They are actually those raptors are actually velociraptors. Were actually based on a different dinosaur. Velociraptors are not like that at all. They are actually the size of chickens. They are not 6 feet tall. They are also their claws were not as strong. They were attacking like groups of 20 to take a big one down, and that's when they were lethal. They were more like the Compass Snugophus or whatever they are from the second one, the actual Velociraptors. They're not as lethal as they were portrayed in this film.
Well, to say what you said about the raptors, I think a 6 foot tall raptor is scary enough, but a lot of them with the size of chickens, I think they are way more destructive that way.
Yeah, certainly Spielberg went the right way with it, and same the way they were described in the book as well. So they just went to suit really. Also, the whole thing with the gills on the Dilophosaurus, it's a hard one to say, was actually fictitious, and the poison spitting that actually that doesn't exist. That was invented for the book and then put into the film.